Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining DataON at the Azure Stack HCI Partner Solution Showcase. For today's Ask the Expert Q&A, we'll be discussing everything you need to know about the new Azure Stack HCI and integrated systems and taking all of your questions. Speaking today, we have Howard Lowe, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at DataON, and Henry Fu, DataON's Technical Program Manager. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Please mute yourself during the session, but feel free to ask all your questions in the chat window, please. And if you'd like to reach out to any of our speakers, you can do so at our booth in the expo hall or head over to dataonstorage.com. Okay, Howard, if you'd like to get us started.
Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining the expert session. Very happy to see everybody here, and we're here to really answer your questions. And we're excited that we're part of this partner conference with Intel and Microsoft, and as part of Solution Showcase. There's a lot of good information in our booth, so if you have any questions, feel free to go to our booth and grab these collaterals pieces and take a look at them. And feel free to ask questions either live or you could type it into the chat room, and I'm sure Rachel will prompt me to it to discuss. We could do a couple ways. Maybe Rachel, should we share some slides or should we just talk about the content itself?
If you'd like to share your slides, I think that might be a good thing to talk to.
Sure. Okay, so as a start, I think you guys got a good glimpse of the excitement we have around Azure Stack HCI, especially integrated systems. I think that's the focus area today for our discussion. I'm going to just briefly go over what it is and make sure that we're on the same page. As Microsoft continue to evolve with the software-defined architecture, integrated system is one of the key differentiator we believe in the marketplace. And with integrated system, we're really getting a next level of customer experience and really making sure that the environment that you're putting together is seamless and really simple to deploy. So with the integrated system, you're adding additional feature that you don't have before. For example, it's a joint supported platform between DataON, Microsoft, and their partners to ensure that if you have any questions or issues regarding integrated system, both Microsoft and DataON is there to help you. So joint support is one of the key differentiation of integrated system. The second piece is really the design and component of the curated hardware. All the integrated system design and capability and configuration are designed to make sure the system's optimized for deliver performance and the capability requires, and is supported for the next 3 to 5 years. That's number two. Number three is joint testing and validation. Between DataON and Microsoft, we continue to make sure that the solution we deliver to our customer are constantly being validated and tested for the latest patch, BIOS, driver, firmware to ensure that your integrated system continue to be highly validated and compatible across multiple iteration of the software generations. Lastly, I think is one most important differentiation is one of the key pain point for our customer and yourself as system admin today is the ability to do updates and patches to both your software and hardware. With the integrated system, DataON in partnership Microsoft, and as a new snap-in into the Windows Admin Center, we launched DataON MustPro. DataON MustPro is an extension to our current Must infrastructure, which is a monitoring and management platform. But with MustPro, you now have the ability to orchestrate using clusterware update feature within Windows Admin Center to do not just the software updates from Microsoft and the patches and the releases, but ability to seamlessly, without hassle, update and upgrade your system BIOS, firmware, and driver seamlessly in the background while making sure that everything stays intact, right? So the days of you taking down a cluster nodes and setting up at a midnight hour to do upgrade and taking node down and rejoin the domain, we're making that process much more simpler and more efficient along with Microsoft to ensure that all these hardware is updated and deliver while you guys have a peace of mind. So that's a huge differentiation between an integrated system and a validated node for Azure Stack HCI. Clearly, I tell all the customer, all the hardware are all curated for the best performance and best components, but the experience that we want to deliver to the customer is really what we want to continue to help you guys with the integrated system, make sure we have the complete experience. Do you have any questions, Rachel, from the chat at all?
We don't have any questions yet.
Okay. So maybe Henry, you could talk a little bit about the MustPro and the technology that we use and how it works to make sure the audience understand why this particular upgrade is unique for integrated system in terms of how it works.
I guess I can sort of talk to you about the MustPro is, like you said, it's an extra snap-in on top of our standard extension, in that basically the concept is that as you build the cluster creation flow, as you go through it, part of it is that they want to make sure that you have the latest patches before you actually build the cluster. So, but along with that, if you have integrated system, then you can have our DataON MustPro, and basically that will also check to see if you have the latest drivers and firmware for all the components. In that, basically it goes in and checks to make sure that what you have versus what we have in our database, that it actually is the current version. And if it isn't, then we'll basically queue up all the drivers and firmware that needs to be updated, and basically let the Microsoft WAC cluster creation to basically orchestrate that as part of the patching and everything, so that it basically have all the updated drivers and firmware before you build the cluster. So that's sort of the cluster creation flow, and then after that, that's day zero. But then from there on, if you have whenever you do patches and you leverage the admin center CAU function, so cluster or updating, that flow also will then go into and checks to see if you have the latest drivers and firmware, and it basically goes again to check our database, and then it goes through that cycle again. So basically, you will always get the latest and drivers and firmware that we have tested in our lab.
Thank you, Henry. I see a question, Rachel.
Yeah, we do have a question from Paul Chan. His question is, I heard of others in the industry buying HCI from traditional server vendors only to find there is zero installation and configuration assistance post-sale. I heard DataON excels with white glove service. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, thanks, Paul, for the question. It's a really good question. I think I'll use a slide to articulate that capability, just so we could have a good discussion here. Let me just share the slides really quick. Yeah, good question, Paul. Thanks. I think as part of the DataON experience and kind of our reputation in the market is we want to make the experience of designing, deploying, supporting a Microsoft Azure Stack HCI seamless for the customer. And what that means is really deliver that white glove service and world-class premium support for Azure Stack HCI. And really, you're correct. There's a lot of great hardware out there across all the vendors that supports Microsoft. But at the end of the day, it's the experience and knowledge that you have for the Azure Stack HCI that matters. Because at the end of the day, as a system admin, owner of your infrastructure, you really have to understand the infrastructure you're building and deploying to support your current workload. And in that, it's really a peace of mind that you have a vendor that's going to be there with you from the beginning until the end, and we refresh again to ensure that your system runs smoothly in that process. And really, that goes through the entire phases of the Azure Stack HCI lifecycle. we always talk to our customer is, the planning and designing phase is a critical phase for engagement as you choose a solution like my Azure Stack ACI. There's a lot of question about what kind of workload you're running today because you're coming from a traditional SAN, or you really want to run some specific, let's say SQL workload or require specific type of performance a profile, right? So in the planning phase, we really discuss with the customer their requirement, their workload, their compute. Are you doing VDI? What's the resiliency and storage you need to build that system? Once that planning phase is complete, we will go learn our best practices and best recommendation from Microsoft and design an architecture to run your workload all the way from the storage stack to the network, to the fabric, to the compute, to ensure that you have a complete ACI stack that can run your workload. But at the same time, we need to talk about not just the design, but looking at the whole entire business continuity for backup and DR, and also the hybrid services that we have with Azure to ensure you have that complete picture to support your system. Once that's complete and we had different design in place, we help the customer set up like a benchmark. We do it within our lab to make sure we run that workload in a synthetic workload fashion and provide that deployment report for you. So you understand what is the baseline we deploy for the customer based on your requirement or design. So you have an idea what that baseline look like before you actually put into action. Once that's ready, our deployment team will engage with you on the pre-deployment side to look at your environment, work with you, and really, whether or not remote or on-site, help you deploy that solution into your environment to ensure that everything's set up properly, configured properly, but more importantly, transfer the knowledge of Azure Stack ACI to you. So you have a peace of mind that, let's say there's some issue going on, you know how to troubleshoot the system. But we're always there for you 24/7 as part of our premium support services to ensure that if you have any issue, you can pick up a phone call and call DataON support to get the resource you need to help your system. And in addition to that, the warranty really extends for the next 5 years, right? We are that single point of contact along with Microsoft with the integrated system. So when you have issue, you can pick up the phone, whether it's hardware, software, VM, infrastructure configuration, we're there for you to make sure that the entire experience from the beginning to the end is complete. So thank you for that question. And that is a huge, huge differentiation that our customer has articulated to us and other customers that DataON continue to be there to help the customer throughout the entire cycle of Azure Stack ACI. Do you have any other questions, Rachel?
One question that we did have this morning in the booth was, are you planning to certify the next gen of Intel CPU, Ice Lake, for Azure Stack HCI, or do you want to wait for the Sapphire Rapids?
Oh, that's a good question. I think as one of the vendors, a Intel Platinum partners and Microsoft Gold partner, we always want to deliver the latest technology to our customer as fast as it's available, right? So that to us, that's key, right? Clearly, there's a lot of validation certification that goes in place to ensure that the latest platform are in place. And we want to make sure that all the testing and validation and certification happens. But the answer is yes. As soon as the technology and the platform is available from Intel, right? We want to get that to the customer so the customer have a choice. At the end of the day, it's a decision of the customer to make sure which of the right platform is right for them, right? The Intel platform have a tick-tock every 18 months, it will change. So the technology is rapidly changing. But with the new platform coming out from Intel with Ice Lake, there's a lot of new features. I think Intel articulated along with Cosmos and Marcelo this morning that you want to take advantage of, right? Because these capability allows you to have a hardware infrastructure that has all the capability to run the next generation workloads, So we want to make sure we're right there with the customer. We want to make sure we're right there with partners like Intel and Microsoft to offer the latest hardware platform, latest generation of the components, whether or not is the server with PCI Gen 4, whether or not is the NVMe SSD that support PCI Gen 4, whether or not is the latest network technology from Intel. We want to make sure those are available for our customers so you could choose from it if you decide to do that. So our timeline is based on Intel. We're going to be right there with them. As soon as they're ready to go and take it to market, DataON will be ready with our system and server nodes and integrated system to offer that to the customer. Okay. Another question that came up a couple of times, I think when we were in the chat, was about what's the difference between a Azure Stack ACI OS and Windows Server 19? We get that question quite a bit from the customer, and I want to just touch upon that really quick to make sure our audience understand. Again, Microsoft is really delivering the software stack and the infrastructure to help run a hyper-converged solution, right? But you do have choices. Many customers are still on the Windows Server roadmap, and as they look at transitioning their solution to the new platform, they need to make multiple decisions. But as I alluded earlier, there are absolutely advantages of Azure Stack ACI, and I think the key word is hybrid, right? Microsoft is really trying to make this new OS, Azure Stack ACI, a hybrid services. Your ability to take advantage of all the new hybrid services offered by Azure is one of the key ways for you to really truly deliver a hybrid cloud infrastructure in your environment. Many of the customers are still choosing whether or not I should keep a lot of my workload on premises or should I move my workload to the cloud. With Azure Stack ACI from Microsoft, you really have the best of two worlds. You could run your workload that you want on premises, but with Azure Stack ACI, you have the ability to leverage all the Azure services as a hybrid services to have that connectivity, whether or not it's building a DR with Azure Stack Recovery, whether or not is to do backup. All these are capability to run Kubernetes on premises. All these are opportunity that you have with Microsoft to take those services and application and run the workload on premises to fit your need. So the choice is really a decision that you have to make as customers. Also, as business continue to evolve from a CapEx to OpEx model, with the consumption model from the new Azure Stack OS, you really now translate this from a CapEx to OpEx model, where it becomes a monthly recurring fee, where you can pay really OpEx capability. So these are all benefit and features that Microsoft is offering to the customer to ensure that you have choices for your business decisions, right? But clearly, as new feature comes in to the stack, Microsoft will put it on the Azure Stack ACI stack first because they want to make sure that you get the latest feature as a service. And a great example is Stretch Cluster, right? Stretch Cluster is really a great innovation that Microsoft is doing, and many of our customers are taking advantage of. You have the ability to stretch your two nodes across two sites, two cities, two continents, and really have a built-in DR in place. You could run it as synchronous or asynchronous. So that's a great feature. Another one that I think Cosmo alluded to is kernel soft reboot. You can imagine why we're doing that, because for the years that we've been working with Microsoft and our customers, rebooting a server could take a long time. But ability to do the optimization and do a faster reboot and get the server back up is very critical. So all these features are now coming to the new Azure Stack HCI OS, and these are the reason why a lot of our customers are choosing it.
Yeah, and one more thing you sort of touched on, but I think we should reiterate is that because it's a subscription model, that you basically will get those updates without worrying about, should I wait for Windows 16 to 19? Like, which one should I use? Or, 19 to the next version, the 22, that type of thing that you sort of like, okay, I'm going to buy a license. Well, with the subscription model, you will get those updates so that you can take advantage of it.
You're absolutely correct. And also, at the same time, while you're getting the consumption model, you have the ability to expand and add. I think another feature that I think I just heard today about the ability to mix match the CPUs. I don't know the term they use, but that's huge, right? As generation of the hardware continue to get better, not getting worse, you want the ability to take the advantage of the best hardware available, the compute side of it. And the fact that Microsoft and Intel's partnering to ensure that you're not locked in to a specific hardware platform is huge, right? Because software continue to evolve every 12 months. There will be new feature coming out, right? But hardware might be refreshed, like a customer says, Sapphire, right? But ability to use multiple generation and cross-generation CPU in the same cluster, wow, that's a huge innovation change to me, because you're not locked in, right? And Henry, I think they say it's about VM, moving VM. That's the biggest issue that a lot of customers have, right?
Yeah, and then basically the pain point is that if you have different generations, then live migration will see that, hey, I can't just move it because all the features of this CPU might not be available for the other CPU, right? So then you sort of have to downgrade yourself to a very low level feature set, and so you're not taking advantage of a lot of different enhancements that they've already made with Hyper-V and the features for that processor.
Yeah, so I think as we continue down this road and this transformation of data center modernization, I think many of the customers are looking at, hey, what are my choices of infrastructure, and continue. We're hearing from customer that Microsoft is really delivering the innovation that they need. And another key one, I think many of us are talking about it every day with our customer, is ability to support a 2-node ACI. Right, 2-node as a starting point, it's a very, I would say, good entry level, performance-driven, affordable configuration, right? But not sacrificing resiliency. Just because you have 2-node doesn't mean you have your cluster will go down. Microsoft has done a great job on delivering more resiliency in the 2 nodes by using nested mirror or nested MAP. You have the ability in the new Azure Stack ACI to have a single node failure with a quorum plus another disk within the node, and still have the cluster staying up. That is a competitive advantage versus a lot of competition competing ACI out there. Then take that and say you could stretch the 2, take another 2 node and stretch it to another location or another data center that you have, and now you're running either active-active or active-passive. Wow, it just makes that investment so much more realistic, because you have resiliency on both sides, but still ability to have a built-in DR as a stretch cluster. So to me, these are innovation that not just large corporate Fortune 500 global enterprise could use, but also small, medium enterprise could take advantage of and really run their infrastructure on a smaller deployment and ability to scale from a 2-node to 16 nodes. So for me, this is very, very critical, and do it as switchless. I think I actually joined the HP session, just look at a Q&A, and the question was asking, does Microsoft support 2 or 3-way switchless? Do you have to validate it? Hey, it's being deployed. There's a lot of 2-node and 3-node switchless design out there, and DataON is one of them that's been driving with a Kepler series of switchless design. You have the ability to deploy a 2 or 3 node without a switch. That's another easy, makes the deployment of Azure Stack much more simpler, but also reduce cost, because you don't have to buy that network fabric right away until you expand beyond 4 nodes. So to me, those are all the advantages and innovation that Microsoft continue to put on the table to help push the market forward and provide choices for the customer. Okay.
Yeah, and the stretch cluster is part of the subscription, right? You're not paying any more for just to get stretch cluster. So.
Yeah. It's and every day it seems like every day I think I kept up with Microsoft, but every day it seems like they release something new to the world about something new they're gonna add to the capability. So every day we're in anticipation of new capability, right? I'm not gonna say the world, but VDI is another interesting one in the future, right? Ability. Today a lot of our customers is running VDI given the current environment, whether or not it's VDI and RDS on the Azure Stack HCI. But clearly there's a lot of capability in Azure services available for VDI that I can imagine in the future we could take advantage of with Microsoft, right? At the end of the day, the solution you as a customer are evaluating is really a Microsoft hybrid cloud solution from end to end, right? You have a stack that's on premises, you have a capability on Azure, and you can have the ability to have the best of two worlds to have that resiliency. But DataON, we are the partner that will give you a peace of mind to ensure that once you make the Microsoft choice, you have a partner who's exclusively focused on Microsoft to help you deliver that complete end-to-end turnkey solution without you have to worry about it. To me, that's the key value of DataON and our partnership with Microsoft Intel, is that taking the software and taking the hardware together and put it together into a solution that just works. So to me, we'll continue to drive for success, continue to help our customers throughout the process, but we want to make sure that we're that vendor for you once you make the Microsoft choice across to run your workload. So, Rich, I think that's that almost come to the end of our Q&A session. I think
that's it for today.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for attending this Q&A, and I'm sure this will be recorded and could be replayed later. But if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. Go to our website. But we still have a expo booth that's open. Go to our expo booth. Our team's there to help you answer questions. If you feel more comfortable doing a one-on-one chat, we're happy to do that, and we look forward to an opportunity to work with you guys.